After the Beatles disbanded in 1970, each member pursued solo careers with varying degrees of success. George Harrison and John Lennon quickly found both critical acclaim and commercial triumph with their respective early solo albums, All Things Must Pass for Harrison and Imagine for Lennon. Paul McCartney, however, had a more turbulent start. His first two solo projects, McCartney, 1970, and Ram, 1971, received mixed responses. McCartney, released alongside the announcement of the Beatles' breakup, was not well received by critics or fans. While Ram reached #1 on the charts, it too was met with lukewarm reviews. Disheartened by the criticism, McCartney felt a strong urge to return to live performances, something the Beatles had stepped away from since 1966. This desire led to the formation of his new band, Wings. Though Wings found success on tour, their initial studio albums, Wildlife and Red Rose Speedway, failed to win over music critics, echoing the reception of McCartney's earlier solo work. With pressure mounting, McCartney needed a breakthrough. Momentum began to shift with the release of Live and Let Die in June 1973. The James Bond theme, written for Roger Moore's debut as 007, became a chart-topping hit in the US and earned an Academy Award nomination, signaling a return to form for McCartney. Determined to maintain that momentum, McCartney approached his next album with high expectations. According to his wife and Wings bandmate Linda McCartney, Paul was driven to either reclaim his artistic spark or give up entirely. She shared in a 1973 Sounds magazine interview that Paul told himself he had to find his magic again or quit altogether. That next album would become Band on the Run. Wanting to break away from routine, McCartney asked EMI to locate a recording studio outside of London. The band eventually settled on Lagos, Nigeria, as their destination. McCartney later explained that he simply wanted a change of scenery and thought Lagos would provide a relaxed, sunny environment for recording. While EMI offered global options, including a studio in communist China, Lagos was more accessible and seemed like a fun choice at the time. However, before the band could leave for Africa, internal issues emerged. Lead guitarist Henry McCullough departed following creative disagreements during a rehearsal. McCartney had asked him to perform a specific guitar line for one of Denny Lane's songs, which McCullough resisted. The disagreement escalated, and McCullough left the band, citing musical differences. McCartney recounted the incident, saying McCullough hesitated to play the part, claiming it was unplayable. Something McCartney, as a seasoned guitarist himself, knew wasn't true. Rather than ignore it, Paul confronted him, which led to McCullough walking out and resigning the next day. To make matters worse, just an hour before the flight to Nigeria, drummer Denny Sewell also quit the band. As a result, Wings was reduced to a trio: Paul, Linda, and Denny Lane. Despite the setbacks, McCartney chose to press forward, taking on drumming duties himself. Once they arrived in Lagos, more challenges surfaced. The weather was far from the tropical paradise he had envisioned, and the studio's condition was far below professional standards. He later acknowledged that his expectations had been unrealistic, recalling that the studio was poorly equipped and that their stay coincided with monsoon season. Nevertheless, he believed that the difficult circumstances pushed them to create something remarkable. Recording sessions took place from August through October 1973. Thematically, the album centered on the idea of escape and liberation, reflected in the title Band on the Run. McCartney described it as a loose narrative. It begins with a character trapped in confinement who eventually breaks free. While there was a connecting thread, he clarified that it wasn't a full concept album. The record included several tracks that would become staples of McCartney's live shows, such as the title track Band on the Run, Jet, Let Me Roll It, and Mrs. Vanderbilt. The album's artwork also became iconic, featuring the band members along with celebrities like Michael Parkinson, Kenny Lynch, James Coburn, Clement Freud, Christopher Lee, and John Conte, all dressed as escaped convicts. Released in the UK on November 30th and in the US on December 5th, 1973, The album had a modest start in terms of sales, but it eventually climbed to number 1 on both sides of the Atlantic and marked a triumphant return for McCartney. Critics embraced the album as a major artistic comeback. Writing for NME, Charles Shaar Murray praised the album as a defining achievement, noting that the ex-Beatle, who was once least likely to reclaim his reputation, had done so with brilliance. He wrote that Band on the Run was so strong that any criticism of McCartney could be silenced simply by playing the album, guaranteeing even the harsh